With California voters increasingly blaming Democrat politicians for the wildfires and spikes in insurance costs, Democrat politicians this week launched a misinformation campaign. Coming up, I'll tell you what they're plotting to do and how we're fighting back. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California and a California state representative representing District 75 in the state assembly. Since the beginning of the year, voters have been shocked by the negligent policies of California Democrat politicians as they learn more and more about how mismanagement of our forests, as well as mismanagement of public safety programs and water, all contributed to the devastation of the LA fires. And of course, homeowners are getting slapped with double-digit increases in their home insurance rates. That is, if they're lucky enough to keep coverage. Many homeowners are seeing their coverage canceled, and they're being put into the government-run insurance program, the California Fair Plan, and their insurance premiums are going up by double or triple. With all of this bad news coming out, Democrat politicians are now kicking into overdrive with a misinformation campaign trying to create a boogeyman to blame all of the problems on. And of course, no surprise, they go right back to the same boogeyman that usually they go after: big oil. Oil and gas companies, they're the ones to blame for the fires. They're the ones that we should blame for higher insurance rates. That'll do the ticket. Here is Senator Scott Wiener, emaciated as ever, at a press conference earlier this week. Quote, Senator Wiener proposes oil and gas industry pay for climate-driven disasters. Of course, he says that climate change is to blame for fires and climate change is to blame for double-digit or doubling of insurance rates. Now, all of this is a complete and utter lie. The facts are very clear. Climate change has not resulted in an increase in the number of fires. We have had an increase in the severity of fires because when a fire starts, it's impossible now to stop it because the fuel load on public lands that are supposed to be properly maintained by state and local government, the fuel load is so great with brush and dead trees and bushes that it burns completely out of control. We also know that state and local policymakers have been negligent in their water management and their public safety management, understaffing fire departments, diverting money to DEI programs rather than preparedness programs, and of course, draining reservoirs so that when there is a fire, fire hydrants run out of the water. These are all proven problems that contributed to the LA fires that we just saw. Oh, but for Senator Wiener, he needs to find a scapegoat real quick. Come on, guys, let's blame oil and gas. That'll do the trick. Now, Wiener has introduced a bill saying that whenever there's a fire, we should penalize oil and gas companies for their causing of the fire. I actually think we ought to penalize politicians for not clearing the brush in the first place. Politicians should have their state budget debited anytime there is a loss or anytime your insurance rates skyrocket higher than the national average. Because their policies led to those problems. If politicians have failed you, then you should charge them for the failure. Otherwise, they won't clean up their act. But Wiener thinks, well, can't admit that it's all our policies, got to blame oil and gas companies, and whenever we can get money from them, by all means, let's try to do it. Of course, you penalize oil and gas companies, what will happen? Working families will pay the price in the form of higher utility costs and higher prices at the pump. You pay for the politicians' failures, and the politicians will never clean up their act. This is a scam. Wiener is a liar. He's a con man. And every time he grandstands saying it's oil and gas's problem, that's the guy to go after, blame them. We need to be out there educating voters with the truth. But the problem is that not only does the liberal media carry the water for people like Scott Wiener when he tries to assign blame to oil and gas companies, but the left-wing donor groups are out there doing paid ads, running paid ads, trying to brainwash the voters into thinking, yeah, it's oil and gas. Earlier this week, a campaign started with a 30-second ad. The group is called Make Polluters Pay, and they are absolutely working hand in glove with Scott Wiener with his illegitimate bill. Here is the ad that they're running, and it's costing them $250,000 statewide. CA versus bigoil.com. Californians have suffered enough. It's time for polluters to pay. You know what? Let's be clear. Those images of fires should be just juxtaposed to a government bureaucrat telling a homeowner you're not allowed to clear 30, 60, 100 feet of defensible space. Or some fat bureaucrat sitting, chewing down on 5 or 6 hamburgers at their home because then no one ever shows up to a government office anymore, rather than going out and clearing brush in a canyon that has, by the way, homeless camps, also a failure of government. Those are the real pictures that would explain the real causes behind these wildfires and the higher cost that you're paying in insurance. The unwillingness of California politicians to let homeowners, property owners, clear defensive space because we have all these environmental regulations. The fact that the California Air Resources Board says that we're not allowed to do controlled burns to reduce fuel loads like we used to do decades ago because of the air quality impacts that might occur. Well, you can either do a controlled burn today and reduce the fuel, or you can have a massive wildfire that burns out of control and emits all sorts of CO2 into the atmosphere. The reality is this: for all the screaming and yelling about carbon emissions, all the regulations, all the costs that working families are now paying for the Green New Deal in California, any reductions in CO2 emissions have been more than offset by the wildland fires that we've seen just in the past few years. The Democrats' policies that they say are saving the environment actually are hurting the environment 10 times over. Those are the images that we should see. But no, you've got this dishonest brainwashing campaign being funded by a bunch of political donors. Politico has the story. Jane Fonda-backed campaign. Oh, well, that's someone that knows a lot about environmental or public safety policy. Jane Fonda. God, how old is she these days? She's writing a check because she wants to put out this ad. And that's the ad I just played for you. Quote, Californians have paid enough. It's time for polluters to pay. It's called the Campaign for a Safe and Healthy California. These people are not about safety or health. They're actually putting you at risk of losing your home and losing your life because they don't want common sense forest management practices. They're the ones that want DEI training programs versus hiring more firefighters. And so they're footing the bill for these misinformation ads to then prop up this law that Senator Scott Wiener has introduced in the state legislature. The company Bear Star Strategies made this ad And they're spending, as I mentioned, $250,000 running the ad on digital platforms. Look, at Reform California, we're out with the truth. We need your help to educate voters that the reason why they're seeing their insurance canceled, having their insurance rates double or tripled, seeing massive wildfires, is because Democrats have failed to protect us, to allow us to reduce fire risk, and are sitting on their hands while homeowners are having a crushing blow to their household budget in the form of much higher insurance coverage costs. Those facts need to get out to homeowners. In fact, at Reform California, in this upcoming campaign, we want to send mailers, letters to homeowners who've had their insurance canceled or their insurance increased by at least 15 to 20%, letting them know that they should blame California Democrat politicians for their financial impacts. When a voter has to write a much more expensive mortgage payment, a higher mortgage payment because their escrow account is depleted because their insurance tripled or doubled, it connects with them. And they need to know that it's not big oil to blame. It's a Democrat politician who's repeatedly voted for negligent, bad policies that brought about this crisis in the first place. We don't have the $250,000 that Jane Fonda has. But what we can do is use digital ads, text messages, and the mailers that I just described to educate voters, particularly as it comes time to the next election. To do that, we need to raise money little by little. So go onto our website right now, reformcalifornia.org, and chip in a contribution. Also, sign up so that you can get our voter guide in the next election. We endorse candidates from school board to city council to county board, all the way up to U.S. Congress and everything in between, including the state legislature where I serve. Please sign up so that you get the plain English voter guide. We also give you the plain English description of all the ballot measures on your ballot, because the Democrat politicians are always trying to sneak through bad policies with misleading ballot titles. Sign up at the bottom of the website, reformcalifornia.org, first name, last name, email, phone, and zip code, so you get our plain English voter guide in the next election. Until next time, I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California and a California state representative. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. But before you click away, please subscribe to this channel and click that notification button so you get updated when we post new episodes. Plus, like this video and share it with your friends so that we can help spread our message across the state. Reform California with Carl DeMaio is paid for by Carl DeMaio for State Assembly.